morning. Welcome to PCI's webinar series. This presentation is sponsored by ALLPLAN. My name is Royce Covington, Manager of Member Services at PCI, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Before I turn the controls over to your presenters today, I have a few introductory items to note. Earlier today, we sent an email to all registered attendees with a handout of today's presentation. That handout has been updated and is available now in the handout section located at the bottom of the webinar toolbox on the right-hand side of your screen. If you cannot download the handout, please email PCI Marketing at marketing@pci.org as shown on your screen. All attendee lines are muted. The GoToWebinar toolbox has an area for you to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, you will receive a private chat message from me. If you have a question, type it into the questions pane, where I'll be keeping track of them to read during the Q&A period. Today's presentation will be recorded and uploaded to PCI's website within the next week. PCI is a registered provider of AIA CES, but this presentation is non-CEU and does not contain content that is endorsed by AIA. Any questions about the content of this webinar should be directed to PCI. The program content does not constitute approval by PCI, nor does it necessarily reflect the views or positions of PCI or those of their respective officers, directors, members, or employees. Questions related to specific products or publications will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Our presenters for the day are Glenn Hutchinson, Business Development Manager of the Americas at ALLPLAN, and joining him is Dan Eastman, Vice President of Technical and Operations of Americas at ALLPLAN. I'll now turn the controls over so that we can begin our program.
All right. Thank you, Royce. Appreciate the introduction. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar entitled Integrated Model-Based Precast Production Scheduling. I'm Glenn Hutchinson. I'm going to go ahead and go through the agenda here real quick. Start off with the digital production scheduling, moving on into a nice demo by Dan. Talk a little bit about who we are, and then we'll get into the wrap up and Q&A at the very end. Talking about the digital production scheduling. Before I get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the precast industry challenges that we're seeing. We do see that precasters are saying that sometimes it is quite difficult to retain their current workforces, difficult to find experienced people within the precast industry or have any kind of precast experience, and then it also can be difficult to recruit into the precast industry from other industries. We are seeing that precast industry is becoming more and more competitive. Architectural and structural drawings that we're seeing at times are getting worse. We are seeing BIM requirements that are come through more frequently, as well as complex projects are definitely on the rise. Nobody really wants any kind of gray boxes anymore. And this is leading to increase in drawings, increase in mark numbers, as well as more complex these projects become. It does take more time to process these and go through the engineering and drafting and even into the scheduling phases. Really the key here is digitization, and creating a digital workflow is absolutely key for all of these types of challenges that we're seeing. This does also give you the ability to be less reliant on key personnel. It does increase your productivity and also gives the ability to have all of your departments have access to specific information when they need it. When we look at the scheduling processes, typically schedulers are looking at maybe a report in conjunction with erection drawings and piece drawings to figure out what they need to schedule, how they need to schedule it across multiple projects. This is coming from multiple of sources of information, and they're kind of condensing it down into one. Generally, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and they're providing these erection schedules, delivery schedules, and bed schedules. All the while, creating manual statuses for pre-pour, post-pour inspections, maybe a delivered status, whether it's erected, and also any kind of damage statuses. These are kind of coming from multiple sources, could be just an email, any kind of a database, a central database is sometimes there. Most people tend to use Excel for some of these types of activities. So these processes are definitely disjointed and fragmented. It's prone to human errors. That's because of the human interaction. You really have limited control over the entire workflow. Difficult to report on accurate bill of materials. You know, for schedulers, they're having to combine all that information from those multiple locations into one kind of area in Excel or some other format. Speaking of Excel, the knowledge in editing Excel, if anybody has tried to use somebody else's Excel spreadsheet to change or manipulate it, it can be quite difficult to run down, especially if there's a lot of formulas and things like that within it. So this leads us to our solution and the answer to a lot of these challenges. First off, we're talking about coming from our plan bar solution and going into TIM. And TIM, using that BIM model coming from plan bar into TIM becomes the single source of all the project data. This gives you that central data source for all departments. This gives you a very flexible yet streamlined workflow. And it also gives controlled access specifically to which people have which access to change which types of statuses or access to data. Configurable and controllable workflows throughout really makes TIM specifically flexible for your needs. When we look at the two different sides of TIM, we have the flow side and we have the work side. The flow side is the flow of data, so that flow of data into other types of applications. On the work side, we're talking about the model-based digital production scheduling, the physical work of scheduling production and what goes along with that. So on the work side, again, it's a configurable workflow. You can visually plan your erection sequence, delivery schedule, production bed scheduling. So this is a visual type of application because we're using a 3D model. Now, we're not using a 3D model in a CAD environment. You do not have to learn CAD or know any kind of CAD. If you can use Google Maps, then you can easily use TIM. Our first stop that we're going to talk about is in the process here of what we're providing is the quality manager. And the quality manager will give you the ability to check the quality of data based on rules that you actually provide. So a nice example that I'll give is, say for instance, I'm a producer and I've outsourced a project to a consulting engineering firm. They can send me the plan bar model as well as a Unicam, Unitechnic type of file. And the quality manager can automatically check, say, for instance, the piece size. Can we physically produce it? Is it shippable? Is it overweight? Any of these types of things that you can set rules up for to physically check the data. Another example could be, for instance, rebar sizes. Maybe you want to check to make sure that all the pin diameters are correct for the number size of bars. Maybe you don't have the capability to bend a number 11 bar, which is quite difficult. Maybe you want to check the lifter capacity versus the weight to make sure that you have enough lifters and that it's correct. So all these types of quality check on the data coming in relies less on personnel trying to physically look at every single piece of this type of information coming in, which is generally happens in the checking process. Next, we move on to the erection sequence. So with the erection sequence, you can visually choose the sequence within the model. And as you see the little picture there of those pieces, it's more of a selection style. Dan's going to go ahead and go through that in a bit. You can reorganize these and set up different types of erection phases for specific dates And the beauty of this is that you can actually produce a report for erectors and send those directly to either it's an outsourced erection firm, or maybe it's you have your internal erection capabilities. The delivery manager allows you to set up your delivery based on either the erection schedule or production schedule. They don't have to be in any specific order. So it is a definitely fluid type of workflow that you can that can conform specifically to your requirements. So this allows you to visually stack the trailers. Could be based on product. You can select the trailer size, the type of trailer, what its capacities are, and automatically load pieces based on the erection schedule or even production schedule. You can also produce reports, and some of the reports that you'll see is you can actually see the physical trailer as well as the loadout. Next, we'll get into the bed scheduling, and bed scheduling is based on could be based on the delivery or erection sequence. It's a visual way to schedule all of your beds. You can have multiple projects on one bed as well. You can even see, for instance, the strand patterns. You'll obviously see all the mark numbers. It does have support for multiple factories as well as multiple casting beds within that factory. And you set up each bed with, say, for instance, bulkhead spacings and even weight capacities for those beds to make sure that they're within the specifications. The other thing that you can produce is a report. So you can easily produce a bill of material report for that specific bed. So all of your inserts and all of your plates, any kind of reinforcement could all be placed on a nice report for the people out in the factory to get ready the day prior. Next, we're going to talk about TIM flow and talk about the project data integration. So we're bringing that information over from PlanBar or those Unicam type of files, and we can send that to any type of application. So it's just data. We can reorganize the data into any format. Could be a flat file format, or we could do direct integrations. Could be cloud-based. We can send it to any ERP system, MES system. Maybe you want to separate out and send information directly to an automatic rebar bending machine. Financial applications for procurement. We can also generate and send IFC models. A lot of times this is pertinent, especially in the coordination types of phases. So at any point, you can also send models directly from TIM to anybody else. Project management apps. Maybe you're using Microsoft Projects and you want to integrate that in with TIM. We can definitely do that as well. And then any homegrown applications. Could be Excel. It could be an Access type of database. So any of those types of data locations or points during your workflow that you need to get information out to other departments, you do have the ability on the TIM flow side. So this allows you, again, with any format to any application. Remember, this is all coming from that central data. So this is going to ensure that the data is absolutely accurate. And we're automating the flow of project data. It could be, as I mentioned, a very automatic type of process. And we're talking about mobile status collection. Some examples that you see up here at the top: the pre-post-pour inspections, pass, fail, yard location, what you have in your inventory, shipping status, erection status, damage status, and even can include pictures with those. This is all collected via a mobile device, and it could be a QR code or even a barcode. The beauty of the TIM mobile or mobile TIM is that you do have the user access control. Everybody has access to the drawings as well and the 3D model. So say, for instance, that maybe the person out in the yard who's going to load a piece onto a truck, he scans the QR code and he only has access to say where it's located, any kind of damage, and then perhaps if it's been loaded. So it's very kind of segregated down into very specific roles, and it's all controlled within the mobile TIM app. Does have online and offline working. So if you're not connected to the internet, either via Wi-Fi or mobile internet, once you do get back on, it will upload all of that collection data. And this really does give you deliver a paperless workflow, especially to the job site. So the people out on the erection team, they can log when pieces get there, what their statuses are, and really the status collection and the examples that I have up here, just some examples, you can really set your own. So when we're talking about using them for production planning, what we're seeing is at the minimum an increased productivity of 35%. Of course, this is all dependent on your current workflow and how much of this workflow you already have that's digitized. So some of the benefits here are obviously the visual scheduling, the act of using that same virtually designed, constructed building, that BIM model for visual scheduling. This is going to give you reduce errors in your schedule, as well as take control over your entire workflow. And it'll also allow you to have those quality data checks. Next, I'm going to pass this off to Dan Ishvan. He's going to go ahead and walk us through TIM. So Dan, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, and we'll be back shortly. Take it away, Dan.
Thanks, Glenn. So as we start organizing our chaos, we're going to start at the source of the chaos, which is really begins in the detailing department, which is going to produce all of our the drawings and deliverables that we'll need to produce from. So here we're in Plan Bar, which is our 3D modeling tool, and we're going to go ahead and export these precast elements over into TIM. Glenn, I think we have a little. There you go. Sorry, I think we had a little misstart. So here you go. So now it's going to go in and export the file for us. So this is a neat little thing. It actually exports like a zipped up file that is going to contain the 3D geometry data, basically all the bill of material data, PDF files, CNC files, everything all in one that we can now import into TIM. So now we switched over to TIM, which is our production manager. This is where we manage all the chaos that has been sent out to us. It's a very easy to use system, basically very customizable. And we'll notice here that we're looking at an existing project that I have loaded here, which is just a little multifunctional house with a lot of information with it. All the attribute data is easily displayed for me in an Excel type of environment, so I can quickly query it and find out exactly where everything is at and get any data on it. So now to import the file that we just exported, we basically just click on it and we'll start importing all that data into TIM. Please note that you can also import data from other 3D systems such as Tekla and Revit using the Unicam file system. So as the data is being imported, we're also running a couple automatic tasks in here. So TIM is very customizable, and we can automate a lot of tasks that are manual. Right now we're manually importing this, but we could have TIM during the import automatically import data as it's being produced by the detailing system, and also create a couple automatic workflows such as creating a bill of material list that can be sent to an ERP system, which it just did right there. Basically automatically created these XML, PXML, these can be customizable. This is just an example that will have all the bill of material data, such as how many materials we have, the weight, length, width, whatever data that we want to show in there, automatically be created and then sent to a third-party ERP or purchasing system as well. The other thing that's happened in here is we'll notice is as we switch over to the project that we just imported here, the PCI July 2020 webinar, we'll notice here that we have full visualization of the model. So we can actually rotate around, view it. We can select any of the elements in the model, find out all the attribute data that goes along with it. And also the shop drawings, single source of truth. Basically, everything is now loaded within TIM, and throughout the system, we'll have access to this data. You'll also notice in our what we call the Data Explorer, which is basically our built-in Excel spreadsheet that helps us manage the data. All the attribute data has been imported. And another check that I did during the import is what we call the quality manager check that Glenn just talked about, which basically checks based on rules I've created the validity of the data. So for instance, here it's telling me that some of the elements that I've imported are longer than what we can actually produce. So it gives me, basically a warning to let me know, hey, you've got a couple elements here that you need to look into to make sure that we actually can produce it. Very customizable. We'll talk about that in a second of some of the rules that we can create. Now we're going to switch over to what we call our collaboration manager. So this is really the hub of TIM. This is where we can go in and really manage our workflows. We'll notice that we have the 3D model and that same spreadsheet, so the same look and feel. And the big thing here, what we have is our very customizable conditions. Basically, this is a workflow of how the data will pass through our database, all the way from new to data created, very customizable, up to you. We'll notice that everything that has been imported is automatically put to a new status. And we can go ahead and select some elements. You'll notice how it highlights it in the 3D model. We'll notice that same attribute and properties screen that we saw earlier, available throughout the system. And again, single source of truth. Anywhere I am, I have access to all the data at a click of a button. So what we want to do now is start working through how we basically progress this data through our system. So we're going to highlight it in the 3D model. We'll notice how it automatically highlights in our Data Explorer. And we've got some processes that are, again, customizable that we can go through. So the first one is to send these to the customer for approval. Let's just say in my workflow, I send it to the customer and structural engineer for approval. I can create a quick email, so almost like a transmittal letter, which will then attach basically all the shop drawings as an attachment, and also a customizable email text that we can put in there. We'll notice it automatically created a multi-page PDF with all the shop drawings. Again, streamlining workflows, again, saving time by doing this automatically for us from the single source of truth. So once I hit finish on that, what we'll notice is the status will automatically now change for those elements that they've been sent for customer approval. And we've got a new color for them, so that way we can differentiate between what's new and what's been progressed. I can also group by the status to make it very easy for me to understand and see the data. We'll notice here we have 30 new items and 15 that have been sent for approval. So very easy now to kind of basically just look. It's just information that I want to look at. The other very flexible and customizable fact is the Data Explorer itself. I can choose what columns I want to see here. It's a user base. So for instance, if I went width, weight, and thickness available for me as a column, I can quickly add it to there as well. I can also go in there and create, any of the attributes are available to be added as a column, or I can also create custom attributes. Basically it's the customization in TIM is really, up to you on how much data, what type of data you want to put in there as well. So now that I've got these drawings out for approval to the customer, let's go to the next step, which is send them over to the structural engineer for approval. So similar, just going to click that button to send it to the structural engineer. This time I'll just hit finish, and it now changed it that these I've sent it to both. The send for approval has been completed. I've sent it to both parties for approval. So now once they come back to me, I have some actions, and when I can say that they have been approved by the customer and the engineer, which will then change the status to these elements to approved. Once they go into the approved status, they are going to be available in other modules, such as my production module or my stacking module, to be progressed. So very customizable defined rules that we can go and put into the system to make sure that the data can be used when available. Fully customizable. You set up the rules on what the limitations are based on the statuses. So quickly, I'm just going to add these other elements here and send them for approval and set them to approved. So we see that we have 31 items available. A couple different exports that we can do. First, reports, built into the system of customizable reports, some out of the box and some that you can go ahead and create yourself. These can be exported to any type of format that you might use. Here's another one, a fixture list. So basically, if I want to see for those 31 items, all the fixtures that are associated to them. Also, if the rebar, if I want to see, what rebar are within those 31 items I've selected, quickly I can create this little report that shows me all the rebar on the line for them, our cutting list report. Some of the other things that we can export that's very interesting here is and unique is, let's say I want to create an IFC file of these 31 approved documents. I want to share this with either internally or my engineer or customer, the 3D model of these 31 approved items. So by a click of a button, the system will automatically can create an IFC file. For me, it's going to open up in my Celebri IFC viewer, but it can open up in whatever IFC viewer you prefer to look at. We'll notice here, I've now created a data export of the IFC of the 31 items. And it's not just a view, all the attributes go along with it as well. So we'll notice here some of our precast items, attributes such as the weight, length, the piece mark, where it's at, all that stuff goes along for the ride as well. So very flexible, very, value add here. We're adding value on top of the data that we have imported. Next, let's say I want to use this some of the data in Excel. Again, customizable. We can go in and export in Excel. We can specify or customize what columns we want to export. Up to you. And the other real neat part about it is if we want to manage our statusing via QR labels with a mobile device, I can also quickly create QR labels. So we can progress the statuses using these as well if we want to. Again, very customizable. We can choose what data information shows up on these, but quickly create QR codes for each one of those piece marks for the 31 elements. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to our next module, which is our operation manager. And this is a great productivity gain or value add again that we can add on top of the data that we've imported. It allows me to create sequences or phases, and I can create my own phase types. For instance, here I have assembly, delivery, and production, but it's fully customizable. So what we want to do here is I want to create a couple erection phases for these elements. We'll notice here that I have all of my elements, but I want to filter out just by the approved status. So I can quickly create a filter. So set it to approved. We'll notice now it only shows me my approved elements. Neat thing about these, I can save these filters, can reuse them again, so I can just load them instead of having to set them up every time. So now that I've gone down to those, I'm going to go in and create some new phases or sequences. This is going to be my erection sequence 1, which is going to be on the 17th of July, and give it a nice little color. And now I'm going to, using my 3D model, I'm going to basically add these elements to sequence 1. And so I've quickly just added additional attribute data to those elements. Now I'm going to create another erection sequence 2. Give it a date of when we're going to actually erect, let's say on the 24th or 21st. Give it another color so we can view it in the model with a different color. And again, I'm going to go in using the model and select the elements to be in that sequence. So very easy, very quick, very user-friendly to kind of basically just create these things that are going to help me in my later, maybe when I'm planning my production and my stacking. And I can also obviously visualize these sequences in with the actual sequence within my 3D model. Hopefully you noticed there that one of the elements was actually out of sequence based on what I've clicked. So element 23 was a little bit out of sequence. Not a problem. Obviously, we can go in there and change it after the fact. Simple drag and move. Just drag it up to exactly where in the sequence of erection I want to move it to. So now if I go in and play my erection sequence, we'll notice that it's actually in a proper sequence. So flexible, easy to use. So great value add tool as an operation manager to the data that we've imported in. Next, we're going to move over to the delivery manager, where we manage our stacking of our elements, basically either for shipping or basically for holding them in our inventory, whatever the situation might be. So we'll notice here in our delivery manager, we have what we call containers, basically a geometrical area that we're going to basically load our elements into. this is very simple and easy to customize and set up for your own plan based on what you have available. So in my plan here, I've just got, you know, a stack where I can put my elements, and I can set up, you know, what the length, width, and height of this general area is. I can also set up, you know, how I'm going to load them. Are they going to be stacked on top of each other? Are going to be vertical? Are going to be in an A-frame? Fully customizable based on user preference. And we can add as many or as little as these as we want. The key here, again, customizable. The other very nice thing to just notice here is, notice how those elements are in red there. That is, again, another visual cue to let me know that those have not been approved and I cannot use them. So what I want to do now is switch over to just my approved elements using my favorite filter. And also there I can see that I have them based on the sequence, erection sequence on the 17th that they need to be delivered. So I'm going to stack those elements. Here I'm going to be, it's going to let me know that I'm a little bit overweight based on the rules I've set up for that stack. And I can force the stack, or I can just tell it, you know what, no, go ahead and put it onto a new stack. So it'll automatically do that for us. So right now it's created 2 stacks for me, and we'll notice we have, you know, 3D representation of what that looks like. We can view it from the front, from the side, from the top view. Also, I have the ability, again, you know, very easy to adjust or edit this. So if I'm noticing I have a very small item down at the bottom, I could quickly drag and drop and put it on top. You know, very simple and easy to adjust. You can manually adjust. You know, the system will automatically do it for you, then you can manually adjust it after the fact. In the Data Explorer, I also have a new option for stacks, which will show me my new 2 stacks that I've created. So another way to visualize the data. And I can also create nice little reports, what we call the stack list report. That will basically just show me what's on that stack, some information. Again, this is customizable as well. And also give me a nice little 3D, a 2D representation of what the stack looks like. So next, we're going to move over to our next module, which is a production module. Again, the workflows as we move the information is completely customizable. We could have gone to production first and then stacking. It's really up to you. There's no set way. It's based on how you work today. Tim is there to adjust to the way that you're working. So here in our production, we'll notice that we have what we call our beds. We have 4 beds in our hollow core bay. Again, these beds are very customizable. Again, just like we saw in the stacking earlier, I can go in and create these, set up my geometry for them, how long they are, the width of them. Also, any sort of, you know, how we're going to load them, any sort of restrictions, only, you know, basically 4 foot wide is the widest we can put on there, or 30,000 pounds at a time. Really customizable based on what we want to do. I'm going to load a new filter here just to show my stacked elements. So that way I can go in and just start loading my stack elements into my production base and start scheduling. So it's very simple. I just basically click on my first shift, and then I can go in there and plan these elements on my bed for the first shift of today. And we'll notice I have a graphical representation of the elements that have been added to it, and we can see in there by color that 35% of that bed is full. So now we're going to go to our second bed, plan a couple more elements for shift number 2. We can create shifts that are very customizable, as many shifts as you need. So I just want to kind of show how we can add them to different shifts as we go in. The other thing to add is that we can manually adjust the layout of the elements, these hollow cores on the bed itself. We can move them around. We can view the strand patterns, so we can adjust them as well. We could put them side by side. Really up to you. This is just a quick example, just showing how the information can be manipulated. The great thing here, it's all graphical, so it makes it very easy for the end user. So in the Data Explorer, now I have a new thing called a palette, which is basically our beds, and it just shows me what's on those beds and gives me an idea to also create some reports, such as our planning sheet here. It shows me the bill of material of what's on it, and also gives me running dimensions with the graphical interface of everything that's on the bed. The other thing that we can do here is, if available to you, is create production data. So PXML or unit technic files. So it's simple, just click of a button. This can be automated as well. So this, you don't have to click a button. It can be automated based on, once it reaches a certain status, these elements. But we'll notice here, it's created for us in a folder that we've selected to output it, the PXML files for that bed. And here we can open up in the progress viewer. So, that can then go to your production system as well. Very easy, very simple, organizing the chaos. Next, we're going to move over to our quality manager, which Glenn talked about, and I talked about briefly when I imported the original data into it, which ran automatically. We can also do it manually after the fact, and this is where we go in and set up our rules. So I've got a couple of rules here for my hollow core, 3 rules. The length, width, and is this a slab that it checks every time I import or manually? And the rules are customizable. I can put in whatever text I want in there. And then the check, is based on attributes within the model. I'm saying the element length is greater than 27 feet. It's automatically going to give me a warning. So that's completely customizable, up to you based on your workflows and situation. So for instance, if I want to manually now check, some members, I can go in or highlight them in my Excel spreadsheet, run the check. It's going to let me know that it's looked at 7 elements and 2 of them have a warning. And I can go in and also just remember, single source of truth. Even in here, if I want to look at the shop drawing of that element that had a warning, I can quickly open it. I can also go in and just like I saw a little bit earlier, view what the warnings are. Why did you give me a warning? It's too long. I can also here go in and add some notes. So if I want to overrule the warning and have it recorded in history for that element, I can go ahead and do that. And we can just say we're able to produce it. It's okay that it's over the length. We've added additional capability to our bed, or maybe we were going to subcontract it, whatever it means. But it records that data for you, so you have complete history of everything that's happened to that element. So last, we're going to go back to our collaboration element just to show you how the statuses have kind of basically just updated as we've moved through the production. We can see here that in green is everything that has been production scheduled. So we know that those elements have been scheduled for production, but we have an approval is going in there as well. And one more time, I always like to show this single source of truth. Wherever I am, I can see the attribute data. It's been updated, and I can always get to my shop drawing wherever I am in the system. Next, I'm going to quickly switch over to what can we do with all of that data. So we can utilize things such as Microsoft BI or any type of business intelligence tools to get access to our database, our TIM database, and for managerial purposes or just having a clear understanding of our workflows, we can create these dashboards. So either the C-levels or the managers, or even the end users can clearly view within customizable type of reports everything that's going on within our production system. Again, this is completely customizable. These can be created based on different rules, but it's instant access to the data that we have within the database. So this is definitely the cream on the crop of organizing our chaos, because we can take all that data and have it visible for us in a very easy to use, a very easy to view report type of system. So very flexible, very customizable, and really it's up to you to the limit of what you can do with all the data that you're managing within production. So as we go through all the reports, next what I want to show is TIM. So this is an Android device that we open up on a tablet. So all the data, everything that we have in TIM is available anywhere in the world via any handheld device that runs Android, so a mobile phone or a tablet. I can see the 3D model. I can look at certain panels, for instance, obviously visualization of it. I can view the shop drawings, instant access to the shop drawings as well. I can also go in and get into the statuses. Also add some things such as, these are again customizable. We can basically add attributes to it. Has it been installed? Has it been rejected? It's really customizable up to you what information you want to put in there, the time, if it's been confirmed or approved by a certain manager. All that is available for you as well. So a very flexible system that allows us to really have another dimension to how we can look at all the data that we've imported into the system. So that was it. That was our quick run through Tim, the Power BI tool, and also the mobile interface of Tim. I'm going to pass it over back to Glenn. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask us.
Outstanding, Dan. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to talk just a little bit about who we are and where we come from. So ALLPLAN is the name of our company. We are a leading AEC software provider for over 30 years now. We do offer comprehensive BIM solutions for architects, engineers, and contractors. We are the founders of OpenBIM, that IFC format. We are very enthusiastic about IFC and the usage of IFC and the openness of using the IFC throughout everyone's workflows. We do have over 400 employees in 9 countries with over 240,000 users in 41 countries, and do support 20 different languages. As far as a wrap up, just a real quick overview, just some kind of key points to take away during this presentation today. Visually plan production, delivery, and erection schedules. I can't stress enough how to visually see this information. It's one thing to look at a spreadsheet and see data. It's how you organize that data, or as we say, organizing the chaos. How you organize that data, and it's something that's more viewable, something you can actually use. Using that BIM model for that single source of all project data gives all of the departments throughout your entire company the central data source for everything, so they can access that information. So what it all comes down to is digitization is key to increasing productivity throughout your entire workflow. So starting off from early sales, going through and creating models, takeoffs, going into the drafting side, using that model, continuing on through the coordination phases, on into the production phases, and then on into the erection phases. You can digitize your whole entire process with our solutions. So with that, I will open it up to questions. I will pass it over to Royce, but real quick, I would like to say thank you all for attending. A special thanks to PCI for hosting this. You will notice on the screen there's a QR code. If you just take your phone, open up the camera app, you can hold your phone up to that and you'll see a little pop-up, and that'll take you to a more information request screen. You can also send us an email at info.us@allplan.com. With that, again, Royce, thank you for your time. PCI, thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody who's on the call, and also people who are watching this that's recorded after the fact. Royce, thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome very much, Glenn and Dan. We have some questions here. This first one is a 3-part question. It says, does Tim work on a project-by-project basis, or can you utilize Tim across multiple projects? And I think this is a misspelling of it says lay stack or plan production for multiple projects. I guess that's, can it be, or do you stack it or plan production for multiple projects?
Yeah, I can take that one, Glenn, actually. Yeah, so you can, the demo I showed today is very simple, but yeah, it's multi-project based. So absolutely, you can, as you go through the different screens I showed you earlier, you can have multiple projects open at the same time within a data explorer. And when you get to the stacking or the production scheduling, all of your projects are available. So you can, on the bed, you can have multiple elements from multiple projects on that single bed as well. I just did it just project by project just to make it very simple to see and use, but absolutely, there, you can have multiple, it's multi-project based type of system.
All righty, thank you so much. Next question is, Does TIM work for any type of product?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So yes, you can obviously, well, not obviously, but yes, you can use TIM for any type of product, any shape, doesn't matter the shape. You're able to view that in our viewer and go through the entire workflow. Yep, you can absolutely can.
Next question, can it integrate with Microsoft projects? Can TIM integrate with Microsoft projects?
Dan, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we can export the data to Microsoft projects. So TIM is a very customizable system, and we can create exports to any type of format, XML. It could be a comma separated file. So absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Next question, can TIM send information to mesh welding machines?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, depending on your mesh welding machine and the format that it needs, TIM can automatically send those required files whenever it's required. For using Progress or any of the other ones, yeah, we can definitely have a nice integration with those types of machines. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Next question, we use SAP as our ERP system. Can TIM integrate with SAP?
I'll take that one. Yeah, absolutely. So we can integrate to any type of ERP system. Most systems such as SAP or Navision is another very common one that go in there, all have the ability to import data, usually computer CSV, or you can kind of create your own custom type of exports. But really any ERP system that has an import button will be able to integrate with TIM.
All right. I have one more question. How can I get my Revit model into TIM for production planning?
Dan, you want to take that one?
Sure. So either with Revit or Tekla, they have the ability to export Unicam files. So they're basically CNC files that we can import into TIM. So it's just exporting out of Revit the Unicam files, which I kind of showed at the beginning of the demo, and that data can be imported into TIM, which will bring in the geometry of the elements, and also all the other attribute data that we can then progress through TIM.
All right, thank you. Looks like that's all the questions we have. On behalf of PCI, I'd like to thank you both for the great presentation and all attendees for their participation. As a reminder, a recording of today's webinar will be uploaded to PCI's website within the next week. If you have any questions about today's webinar, please email marketing@pci.org with the title online. Oh God, sorry, I dropped the ball mentally there. Online integrated webinar, and we'll make sure we forward those to our presenters. Thank you again. Have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.